Arrowhead Properties has raised 600 million rand by issuing some shares. It wants to use the money to increase its investment in residential property. Johannesburg, Vanderbijl Park and Witbank. Unusual names, two of those at least. Joining us in studio for a look at how this plan is going to be implemented is Chief Executive Gerald Leissner. As I was saying to Gugu off air, Gerald, you bring new meaning to veteran, the word veteran in property. How long have you been involved in the property game?
I started in 1964.
And Anglo-American Properties, I mean, that was the king of property at one point in time when you ran it for some years, and then we all thought you'd retired, but here's the second lease of life.
No, look, Anglo-American was 1972. They took over the Schlesinger organization at that stage. And then I was there till 2001. We sold off most of their properties and we started a business called Apex High together with Corp Capital. And that was very successful. And I did retire in 2009. I met some young people and started Arrowhead. And it's been a very exciting 3 years.
And now you're residential?
Well, I tried to start a residential fund in 2010. I couldn't find stock. There was lots of money around, couldn't find stock. So we left it alone and then started Arrowhead. And then about a year ago we said, well, why don't we start it small, do it within Arrowhead, and then let's see how it develops. We bought a portfolio from a company called Jika to start off the section in Arrowhead, which would be residential. We called it Arrowhead Residential at that stage. And since then we've been buying stock. So after this capital raise and after we transfer properties until by about the 1st of April, we'll have a portfolio of about 1.6 billion. So it's it's already a sizable chunk within Arrowhead.
When you say buying stock, you obviously don't go into the suburbs and buy houses and then re-let those houses. Yeah. What exactly is residential stock in your universe?
We said right from the beginning, we see ourselves being an exit for developers who have developed stock on scale, or owners of property or residential property who have stock on scale. And they really want to either take money off the table because they've invested equity and they've had borrowings, or as developers they want to recycle that money. So that's what we look for. So when I say we bought something, for instance, in Witbank, it's hundreds of townhouses, and it's it's an investment of hundreds of millions. So that's the kind of thing that we look for. And it's across the board. It's generally in the lower end of the market. I mean, we're not buying high value residential stock in Sandton, for instance.
Why not though?
It might be a situation, but we buy stock for rentals. That's our business. We're not reselling it. We're building up a portfolio of rental stock. We buy rental streams. So it's unlikely we're going to buy high-end residential, which is generally for sale.
But doesn't that bring a whole new management layer in? You've got to collect the rent, you have legal issues, get a few heavies to kick the guys out when they don't want to pay, etc.
Yes. Look, the model within Arrowhead generally is that we outsource everything that we can. So on our commercial portfolio, it's all outsourced to JHI, and they actually do a very good job. We are replicating the outsourced model for our residential, but slightly differently, because we're going to be involved in all over the country. So what we do is we look for the specialist in residential management in the particular area. So we've got a number of people in Johannesburg. We're going to, as I say, Vanderbijl Park, into Witbank. So we've got specialists who do it in that area.
So locals from Vanderbijl Park,
the local specialist in residential management.
How much does it add to costs, that layer?
Look, the collection on residential is anywhere between 6 and 10% of the rentals collected. In the commercial field, it's 3.5% or less. So it does add.
So you have a higher yield from residential, which of course takes care of it.
We look at net yield after all the costs. So obviously there is an amount that's built in. What we've also been able to do with a number of the purchasers that we've done business with is that they've actually given us a rental guarantee for a number of years. And if they don't achieve that on the collections, and they will carry on doing the collections. If they don't achieve that in the property management, we've retained money, they'll chip it in. But after 2 years or 3 years, however long that we're going to be in the management or the supervising of outsourcees in that particular area. So that's really the model that we're using.
Your thoughts then on the current climate, if interest rates do get hiked up in the next 18 to 24 months, the impact that might have on some of your tenants and the collection there?
Look, I think that's obviously a general issue in not only in residential but on the commercial side as well. Increase in interest will increase people's costs. That's going to happen. What's more interesting is that what happens with interest rates going up, what it does to the quoted company, because that's going to affect us more than anything else.
Adversely.
Adversely.
So placing the stock at
our
this
share
stage.
price is directly linked to bond yields.
Hence the reason to do the placement that you did at this stage.
Yes, no, we thought the timing was right. We raised money at a good price. We're fixing our interest rates, or we have long-term interest rate fixes on our debt in Arrowhead, and we're extending that at present. We think that interest rates will go up. It's a question of when.
Just elaborate on that, if you would. How sensitive is your stock price to an interest rate increase?
Well, as I say, I think if you look for the last 20 years, you look at the graphs and you look at long-term interest rates and you look at the price of property stocks on the JSE, it follows exactly. So if bond rates go, if interest rates go up, property prices will come down. That's what's going to happen.
And right now, if interest rates are at a historic low, as they are, would you then be doubling up in the property sector if you're an external investor? Perhaps not.
I think it's difficult. Look, the only thing that can be said about the situation in South Africa is that all property companies are able to grow the revenue stream in their core portfolios because we have escalations in all our leases. So you should find that your income streams go up. Now, if your income stream goes up by 10% and interest rates go up by 10%, you should be basically the same. If you do better than that, you might. But there's no doubt if interest rates go up, it is going to create a downward effect in the property prices.
Basically the same if bad debts don't go up.
Yeah.
So you've done the fundraising at absolutely the right time. What kind of escalations do you work into your residential property leases?
Between 8 and 10% per annum.
And
look, that's over the last few years, people have been able to do that. A couple of years ago, it was even higher than that, and some property owners were actually increasing rentals twice a year. But the one thing in this market, there's tremendous demand. There's just lots of people who need housing, and rental housing is an important element.
ahead of your time once again, Gerald Leissner from Arrowhead, that's Arrowhead Properties Chief Executive.